the, I don't know the matter number for the, oh, this one, yeah, where is it? Oh, here it is.
Yeah, so it's that TA 21.
Got it. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, if he gets me some mice, I can put them out if you guys want them.
You guys ready?
Let's go.
Okay. We have four.
We're good.
We're good. I will call to order the June 2nd, 2021 Plan Commission meeting. If you would join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can we have a roll call?
Yes. Excuse me. Mr. Fay.
Here.
So sorry.
Take your time, Ken. It's all good.
Mr. Fay.
Here.
Ms. Logan. Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Moulter.
Here.
Ms. Storr.
Here.
Mr. Richards.
Here.
Ms. Kelly. Ms. Lang.
Here.
Mr. Stevenson.
Here.
Mr. Stewart and Mr. Zimmerman. 7.
Okay, we do have a quorum. The next matter on the agenda is the approval of our minutes from our May 5th, 2021 board meeting.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Pete,
Second.
second by Bruce. All those in favor, use the vote and sign aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The next agenda item we have is TA-21-2 UDO text amendment for the Municipal Airport District. This matter has not been acted upon by the City Council at this point, so we will address that at our next meeting. That moves us to our next agenda item. It is TA-21-19, Fishers 2040 Comprehensive Plan 5-year update. I can't believe it's been 5 years, Megan. Megan is going to present for the staff.
Good evening, Plan Commission. Megan Schaefer with the Planning and Zoning Department. So this is the first 5-year update for our comprehensive plan. So I'll just give you a little introduction to the comprehensive plan and some background. So the purpose of the Fishers 2040 plan, it is our long-term vision for the city. It's a 25-year comprehensive plan. And it's really to ensure fiscal sustainability as our community transitions from a rapidly growing community to a stable population by the year 2040. We want to ensure purposeful planning as the city develops and redevelops towards our build-out scenario, ensuring that we continue to thrive as a smart, vibrant, and entrepreneurial city. And it provides direction and assists decision makers such as yourselves with making short and long-range choices for improving the quality of life in Fishers. So the overall vision statement that was identified in the plan back in 2016 is that the city of Fishers is a smart, vibrant, and entrepreneurial city that provides an exceptional quality of life and fosters a culture of innovation and resiliency. So just to give you a little history on the plan, so it was first adopted in June 2016. There have been annual progress updates that have been presented to City Council and Plan Commission, and then per direction that was put in the plan back in 2016 is that we update it every 5 years, and so with it being 2021, we're very timely on that. It's June, so we are right at that 5-year mark now. So that is why we are before you tonight. So just to give you some structure of the plan itself, it is broken up into 4 main chapters. So that would be land use, housing and neighborhoods, transportation, and parks. So for this update process, there was an overall steering committee that oversaw 4 subcommittees that was focused on each one of these chapters. And we met from January to April, we met virtually 4 times, and there were over 29 individuals involved. So for some progress to date, there were 149 actions that were initially identified in the plan. Of those 149 actions, 72 have been completed, 54 have been started, but are still ongoing, and then 23 have not been started. I do also have here shown, with this update, we have kind of restructured our implementation chapter to make it a little bit more easy for staff to identify the status of each one of these action items. So we have it in a table format where we identify the status and then can add notes just for future staff to reference as we continue going through these annual updates. So I'll go over each one of the chapters to give you a brief overview of the update. So the first chapter is going to be the land use. So the Fisher's 2040 plan has our future land use map that has identified, which is really the city's vision for future land use citywide. I will say that this is just our vision. This is not the zoning of these properties. This does not change what currently exists today or what is currently allowed. This just is to be used as a guiding document when making future land use decisions. So with this update, there were 11 study areas that were identified back in 2016 that didn't get a future land use designation that with this 5-year update, we really took a look at to identify what land uses we'd like to see there. And I'm just gonna briefly go over each one of those with you. So the first one was at the northwest corner of Allisonville and 96th Street. This is a piece of property that the city is potentially going to activate with a public park, so some parks and open space was identified with that. Additionally, some attached residential, so that would be townhouses, duplexes, and then neighborhood mixed use, and that really is a low density commercial uses such as office, daycare, dentists, something that would match the residential character of the area. The second area was on the Lantern Road corridor, so this is just south of the Nickel Plate downtown district. There is existing residential that sits here today, and we do anticipate that that would remain residential, although it may be redeveloped into higher density residential. So this would be a mix of single family as it exists today, but also some townhouses, and we've seen some new homes being built there that are a little bit higher density. And then additionally, that neighborhood mixed use to the north and south of that area, which would just, again, be that low density commercial matching the character of the area. The third study area is at 131st Street and Brook School Road. This is another existing residential development, and so the Land Use Committee did identify that to remain as core residential. It's a little bit higher density development. And really the thought here wasn't to change what exists there today, but just look at how we can continue to revitalize this area. And then additionally, some neighborhood mixed use was identified as a need in this area. Study area 4 is Hoosier Road and 116th Street. So this is a prime parcel, very centrally located in the city. And the subcommittee found that parks and open space, this would be a great opportunity for an additional city park here. And then also some core residential just to really match the existing development to the east and west out here. State Road 37 corridor. Not much really changed with land uses that exist today with what we would expect to see here in the future. So along State Road 37 itself, employment node is what we'd like to see, which is really just opportunities for regional employment. That would also be surrounded by some flex employment. So that's professional offices, research and development, maybe some manufacturing. Really what you would see out here around the municipal complex with the Braden building, so just professional offices. And then just mixed in there would be some neighborhood service center and then also some attached residential with the opportunity for a pocket park along the Nickel Plate Trail just south of 141st Street there. The special study area, number 6, is for the Indianapolis Metropolitan Airport, and this was identified as a flex employment center. So back in 2016, we did design a concept plan for this area, and that really focused, again, on commercial opportunities for professional offices in this area. So this would just solidify that concept. Study Area 8 is just south of I-69, really up in northeast Fishers, this is 126th Street, north of I-69. And what uses exist here today are the U.S. Foods manufacturing facility, and we've also seen some additional industrial, low-impact industrial being developed in this area. And so the subcommittee felt that keeping with that same theme and identifying this as a flex employment center made the most sense. You'll also see identified here as a greenways buffer, and that just runs along the creek there for a future amenity in the area. So the 136th Street corridor, this would be south of I-69, north of 136th Street, up near Britton Falls. The land uses that were identified were keeping with that same suburban residential feel that's being built out there today. And then as you move west towards the exit 210, providing more opportunities for that flex employment. And then just south of there, some mix of core residential, so some different product type, such as townhouses or duplexes. Area number 9, so this is out in East Fishers, really at the corner of Southeastern Parkway and Atlantic Road. So the committee felt that there was maybe missing some neighborhood service in this area. There's a lot of residential, but that's being built, but not a lot of commercial, and so this might be a good opportunity for that to exist, but keeping it more that low-intensity commercial use with some mix of single-family residential. Study area number 10, so this is where the Fishers District exists today, along with Topgolf, and the city would really like to see this continue to develop in the same way, so providing entertainment opportunities and regional draws, so bringing in people from outside of Fishers that may want to visit the city. And then the last area is on 116th Street at the White River. These properties were identified as parks and open space mainly because they exist in a floodplain, and so any redevelopment would be unlikely. There's existing residential there today, but we would like to see this be a city park or just open space in the future. So with that, some future action items that were identified is really taking a look at how we can rezone areas of the city to align with this future land use map. Establishing more mixed-use nodes, so areas that would allow both commercial and residential, and then identifying future redevelopment areas around the city. Moving on to the Housing and Neighborhoods chapter, just pull up some statistics that the committee was working off of. So really the committee was looking at our existing housing stock today, the demographics of the city and where we're projected to go, and then the remaining land that we have available to build in the city of Fishers. So you can see our community has a pretty young housing stock compared to the rest of the state. 44% of it was built after the year 2000. Population is projected to change just a bit as we reach the year 2040. So the population of those age 65 or older, the proportion of that population is going to increase, as well as those in the young adult category, so age 25 to 44. And then just looking at land use, we have about 8% of undeveloped land left in the city. 2% of that has been planned for residential, and so really thinking about how we want to, how development should occur as we reach build out. So that committee really identified two main actions for this update. So one was, how do we support revitalization and upkeep of existing neighborhoods? So our neighborhoods, although maybe relatively young, are going to continue to age. So how do we make sure that those are maintained properly? And then establishing a housing task force to look at the change of demographics, the trends, and what strategies we can implement as we reach build out. And so the city is working on establishing that housing task force currently, and we anticipate them to start meeting probably in the fall of this year. So moving on to transportation, this is a significant chapter in the update. So here is the Thoroughfare Plan for the city. So this is what we would envision our roadways to look like by the year 2040. Identified here, which is really small, this is really just to give you an idea of the updates in this plan. But most of the updates include additional roundabouts or improvements to intersections. And so we worked very closely with our engineering department determine what the future needs are. And so we're getting those included in this update. Additionally, we have our bike and pedestrian plan. So what sidewalks exist or what greenways are we wanting for the year 2040? The only additional thing that's being added to the bike and pedestrian plan would be the nickel plate trail. That was not included back in 2016. That is currently under construction, and so we're including that in this update. So the new action items for transportation really focused on one of these three categories. One was how do we connect our existing trail network? So completing a trail gap analysis and prioritizing those trail connections. A big discussion was ensuring pedestrian safety. So how can we provide additional pedestrian connectivity across the White River? How can we make sure those walking across the I-69 corridor feel safe, as well as at exit 205 and 210? And then really how can we support new mobility technology, such as electrical vehicles? So creating a best practice guide for EV charging and making sure any new commercial or multifamily developments incorporate that into their site. And then the last chapter is the parks chapter. So we currently have over 770 acres of parkland in the city of Fishers. This includes the new Geist Waterfront Park that broke ground last month, as well as the Fishers Agri Park. And so this committee really looked at how do we maintain that existing parkland to population ratio as our population continues to grow. So the new action items identified for that chapter was how do we plan for future facilities? There was a task force that just wrapped up regarding our recreation facility, and so I do anticipate future plans for that to be released soon, probably this year. Additionally, just expanding on the transportation chapter, how do we connect our trail network, which would include our park system as well, so making sure all of our parkland is connected by trails. With the creation of our Fishers Health Department this year, as we come to a close on the pandemic, what opportunities exist for them to partner with the Parks Department to promote health and wellness, and then how do we continue to promote art and culture through the programming of our park system. So there was several opportunities for public input during this process. We held 2 virtual open houses that were well attended. These were virtual just due to COVID, and I think that actually benefited the number of people that were able to attend. We had great numbers for that. Tonight we have our public hearing before Plan Commission, and then this is scheduled for City Council adoption June 21st, so that will be a public meeting as well. Staff does recommend that a favorable recommendation be sent to City Council for approval, and as mentioned, this would be scheduled for adoption June 21st.
Thanks, Megan. I have a few questions myself, but do board members have questions for Megan?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So looking at this, Megan, and I'm on the major changes portion which you gave in the packet.
Yep.
So if we go to chapter updates, particularly as it relates to housing and neighborhoods, or identified update process, housing subcommittee, steering committee has priorities for future implementation, promoting housing diversity, affordability needs, blah, blah, blah. In there, it talks about item 2.2.1, form a housing task force analyzing housing needs in the city of Fishers and broader housing needs, makes recommendations to address needs and opportunities. Every item underneath that I would like to remove, because if we're going to have a housing task force, I don't want to saddle them with anything. I think they're probably very good questions to proctor in when you have that committee meet, but I don't want to go ahead and say we're passing this with everything that's in this particular report here, because then I don't know why we're having a task force. So my recommendation, and I'd make that after we have the public hearing, I'll make a motion to that effect, to eliminate items 2.2.2, 4.2.1, 4.2.2, 4.2.3, 4.2.4, 4.2.5, and 3.1.9, and leave those on action item list for the subcommittee.
The only thing, and staff is okay with that, because I agree that the Housing Task Force is going to look at a lot of those questions that were identified here. Items 2.2.2 and 4.2.4 were existing action items that were included in the initial plan. So those are really more geared towards
Give me that 2.2.2, and which other one?
the 4.2.4 regarding the universal design. So those are less related.
I'm okay with both of those.
Okay, all right.
I'll amend when I go do it, but so 2.2.2 and then 4.2.4, I would be okay with leaving there.
Yeah, and staff's more than okay with that, because again, this housing task force is really going to inform a lot of those
Correct.
action items.
Right,
Yep.
right.
I agree with Pete. I think those questions should be pushed down forward to the task force, and that they can really decide what that's supposed to be. So I'll second that we make that amendment.
Any other questions? Dawn?
Who are the individuals that are selected to be on the task force?
So we are finalizing that, but we're trying to get a good mix of those in the housing community, such as realtors, builders, developers, residents in the community that sit on our age-friendly group, as well as our ADA group. We've had a number of individuals reach out to us that have expressed interest, as well as just polling from those who have wanted to serve on our boards and commissions. So we're looking at that, and we hope to finalize that by the end of this week. And I can make sure Plan Commission's plugged into that as well.
Well, Megan, you were mentioning the public input that we had, the 2 virtual open houses that were well attended. I believe we also received probably about 4 or 5 public comments that were presented or shared with the board. Will the staff follow up with those persons who made comments to address those issues that they may have?
Yes, so we have followed up with each one of those individuals. And we'll put that on the record, our responses to each one of those, that table that was provided. We just have an extra column, so we can make sure that that's on the record as well.
And I guess one last, maybe a observation more than a question, but being a 21-year resident of Fishers myself, I've seen the growth that we've had exponentially during that time. So I think it was somewhere in the material I read that we're at approximately 100,000 in terms of residents for Fishers, which is amazing. Does that include our unincorporated areas, or what does that 100,000 entail?
Yes. So we just wrapped up our department's annual report where we do our own projection of the population, which we found was probably over 100,000 at this point, which that does include the entire planning jurisdiction. So that would include unincorporated areas of the city. The actual city limit population will be released with the 2020 census data later this year, but as of right now, the planning jurisdiction number is likely over 100,000 based on our projections.
Wow. Thank you. Any other questions by board members?
And I will just say this does require a public hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That segues into it. So at this point, at this time, I will open the public hearing. If we have members from the public who would like to address this issue, please approach the podium. For the record, please share your name with us and your address. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to probably say what you've already said, but my name is Susan Brandon, and I live at 9846 Gulfstream Court. I'm also a member of Fishers One, a volunteer group of concerned citizens, and also a realtor here in Fishers. After reviewing the changes in the 2040 plan on tonight's agenda, and seeing that you are going to be adding a housing task force study, which is great and truly needed, I'm here to respectfully request that the items that are possibly being added be reviewed: 4.21, 4.22, 4.23, and 4.25. I would ask that they be tabled until we have results from the Housing Task Force study and the true study of real estate that is being proposed. Anything done before that would simply be assumptions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? At this time, I will close the public hearing. Comments from the board members?
I just want to thank Megan and her team and everybody who was on the board, on the committees to do this. I mean, it's an immense amount of work. I was on the land use committee, so, and it was very difficult as you were doing everything virtual, which I was not a fan of, but I had connectivity problems at times, but we still got through it, and you guys did an exemplary job. So unless there's any other comments by the council, I'm going to make a favorable recommendation with the elimination of those items which I had set forth before, 2.2.1, 4.2.1, 4. Nope, hang on, let me find it, 4.2.3. Did I get 4.2.2, Megan, right? Is that what I want? 4.2.2, 4.2.3, yeah. Okay, and 4.2.5. And then I would even put down there on 3.1.9, that's another study item which our young lady in the audience missed, which I want to add to that. So let's get that in front of the task force, and let's them come back with some recommendations, and we can have full council vote on that. So that would be my motion.
Can we, before we entertain a second, can we get clarity on what those sections were? I just want to make sure.
Sure. So basically, you got 4.2.1 that establishes it talks about, well, 4.2, evaluate current method of plan review and explore how to improve the system to encourage innovative housing and neighborhood design. That's one we're keeping, correct? Megan, 4.2.2. 4.2.1, organize an educational effort on affordable housing, including needs for various demographics, housing types, city programs, target messages to general community as well as potential housing developers. 4.2.2, is that the one I'm leaving or not?
So you are not leaving that one,
Okay,
yeah.
so update the UDO to define broader range of alternative housing types such as duplexes, triplexes, accessory dwelling units, garage apartments, et cetera. Expand these where types are permitted. 4.2.3, identify feasible incentives to promote development of missing middle housing types, affordable or workforce housing, as well as ADA and accessible housing units. 4.2.4, we're keeping, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then 4.2.5, in the development review process for new neighborhoods, encourage the integration of a variety of different types of price points of housing that some can afford to live in Fishers, starting out and stay until retirement. And then 3.1.9, expanding the matching grant program to establish separate grant programs to fund home repairs, including exteriors for owner-occupied rental, developers to provide affordable housing, or to renovate existing housing that meets affordability criteria into retrofitting of existing housing for ADA or universal access. So those are all items that I felt this is what the task force was going to go ahead and look at. So I don't want to just throw this on them and then say, go be a task force, but we've already approved this in the 2040 plan, because this is what's going to go to council. So those items which I've said, and that's the reason why I want to do that. Those are large topics, and we designed the task force to put everybody out there and get the opinions before we make these recommendations.
Yeah, so I'll just add to that. Pete's exactly right. These items identified as new here really are what the Housing Task Force is tasked with looking at. And so they're not necessary to be added in the comprehensive plan at this point because we just haven't made that determination yet. So he's just proposing any of these new items to be removed, and that this one up here about forming the task force, that would be the only one to remain at this point. And then these two, evaluate current method of plan review and explore how to improve system to encourage innovative housing and neighborhood design. That was in the initial plan, so we'll go ahead and keep that one. And then this 4.2.4, revise the UDO to encourage universal design options. That was also identified in the plan back in 2016, so that one would remain as well, but all of the other ones would be removed, and staff is okay with that as well.
So you said staff is okay with that? Yes.
Correct, yep.
Thanks for the clarity, and thanks, Pete. I wanted to make sure we knew what we were voting on. So we do have a motion by Pete. Do we have a second? A second by Don. Any other further comments at this time? Kay, would you call the roll?
Mr. Fay?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Moulter?
Yes.
Ms. Stoller?
Yes.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
Ms. Lang? And Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. And I would like to echo what Pete said. I want to thank the staff as well, and also the steering committee and the task force members, and also the public who participated in the virtual open houses to have a input on what we're going through in this process. So thanks, Megan. Next agenda item is old business. I don't believe we have any old business. Staff communications, summary of council actions. Do we have any this month?
The only summary would be that airport item, and that will be back before you next month.
Thank you. Well, that's the last agenda item that we have. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. We are adjourned.